Hi there, welcome back to Fat's Kitchen. I'm going to demonstrate today how to make a white sauce, or as it's also known, Béchamel sauce. Now in this demonstration I'm going to produce about 500 milliliters of white sauce, but I'll explain to you how to either scale it down or scale it up. So I'm starting with 60 grams of butter, which I'm going to begin to melt over a medium heat. And when you're working in units of grams, you want to have equal quantities of butter and flour. So I've weighed here 60 grams of flour. So you could obviously scale that up. And if you want to make more white sauce, you would use, for example, 125 grams butter with 125 grams of flour. So to produce my 500 mils of white sauce, I have here already measured in this pot 500 milliliters of milk. And what I've done is I have infused this. I've put some peppercorns in here. You can't see it in the moment, but you'll see it just now. I've put some nutmeg and a wedge of onion. And I've warmed the milk up slightly. This just infuses a little bit of flavor into your milk, but that's entirely optional. You don't have to do that at all. You can just season right towards the end with salt and black pepper. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to strain my milk so that we can leave behind the flavor components. There you can see my onion that I've put in there, and my peppercorns, and also some nutmeg. Now you also want to check because with the heating you could lose a little bit of volume through evaporation of your milk, so I'm going to have to top this up to about 500 milliliters of milk. Now I've actually used half and half. In other words, that's 250 mils cream and 250 mils of milk. I like a rich and creamy white sauce, but of course that's again optional. So I'm going to just top up to make sure that I've got about 500 milliliters. And towards the end, if this is the sauce is too thick for you, you can add a bit of milk to thin it down. So my butter's melted, and I'm going to add my flour and start stirring and mixing that through. You're going to see it's going to make a paste. This is what's called a roux, and you want to cook this to avoid having a raw taste in your white sauce. You're cooking up the flour before you add your milk ingredients. Right, so my roux has been cooking on medium heat for about a minute, and I'm going to start adding my milk. I'm just going to take this off the stove. I'm going to add a third of the milk at a time, and we're going to stir that through, combine it. It's important to have a whisk to prevent any lumps from forming. Put this back on my medium heat. I'm going to add the second third of my milk to my mixture and continue then to stir this through the roux. And I'm now going to add the last portion of my milk, and I'm actually going to go over to the larger whisk. And the whisk is the key to keeping your white sauce smooth and creamy. But don't stress. If you get distracted for some reason and you do develop some lumps, you can use a handy stick blender. Just whiz it through and it will get rid of those lumps very quickly. Right, and I'm going to continue stirring until it begins to thicken. Okay, so my white sauce is thickened. You can come and have a look at the consistency of my sauce, and depending on what you're going to use your white sauce for, if you want to make a cheese sauce, you would add your cheese at this point. I have here about a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese, and I especially like to add Parmesan cheese if I'm going to use my white sauce to make mac and cheese or for lasagna. For lasagna for 4 to 6 people, I usually make about 1 liter of white sauce, and in fact my cheese is already melted. Of course, you could also use grated cheddar cheese instead of the Parmesan, but Parmesan is just my personal favorite. Now, if you prefer to work with volumes, you could, for example, start off with 2 tablespoons of butter, and there the ratio is 1 to 2. So there you would take 1 tablespoon of butter and combine it with 2 tablespoons of flour, and then scale it up. 2 tablespoons of butter to 4 tablespoons of flour. Now, if you work with 1 tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of flour, you add a cup of milk for your white sauce. This particular consistency of white sauce that I have here, which is quite thick, is perfectly suited for lasagna. Now all that is left for me to do is to season it. I'm going to taste and season it with salt and pepper if need be. Thank you so much for joining me again. I hope this was informative.